You know, while I was born in California and I've spent time on the East Coast, it's this third coast that I have made as my home. Yeah. It's a great place, isn't it? Great place to be here in Michigan. I've lived and worked in Michigan for the past 30 years. Now, some of you might know me as a professor of crop and soil sciences at Michigan State University, and others of you might know me from my time at Kellogg Foundation, where I really had the privilege of helping the Kellogg Foundation create a new program in food and farming systems. Others of you might know me in my current role at Fair Food Network, a national nonprofit organization headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we work to create solutions that bring a fair price to our farmers for the products they produce, while also, at the same time, working to help those who live in our most underserved community have access to the most delicious and nutritious food possible. Through all of these chapters in my life, my commitment to this place and to this work has been fueled by the passion and the intelligence and the entrepreneurship of all of you good food champions in this room right now. And I just want to tell you, it is really, I count it as a blessing in my life that I have the opportunity to work with you. So as a community, we've spent the day reflecting on a fundamental element that connects us all: food. Indeed, food connects us like few other things. It reflects our cultures, our values, our traditions, our rituals. Food is the most profound connection we have with the earth that we live on. It nurtures, sustains, and heals us, and in its excess or its deficit can actually also create disease. Food touches everything, climate and conservation. You know, there are some who say, and I believe, that how we collectively choose to feed ourselves in the future will be the single most important determining factor of what our environment looks like for future generations. Globally, food can spark revolutions. Just think about the price instability of food that was one of the catalyzing agents of the Arab Spring. Nationally, food contributes over $1 trillion to our economy in the U.S., and it's the second largest economic sector of our state here in Michigan. Locally, food can divide us between those who have access and those who don't. Something that some folks have called the nutritional divide, right? You've heard about the digital divide, so we now have the nutritional divide. Yet research conducted a few years ago at Kellogg Foundation found that many of us think about food as what's on our plate, what's in the refrigerator. We think about what we're going to have for dinner or how quickly we can get some of that apples and peanut butter. Now, some of us think about which grocery store, we sort of go beyond our plate and refrigerator. We think about which grocery store we might shop at. Does it carry organic or locally sourced food? And we may even be thinking about, are we going to get to the farmer's market this weekend? I would say these are all conditions of privilege. To many of us in this country, too many, and in our state, they actually may be wondering about where their next meal comes from when they think about food. And the pressures of this broken food system don't impact all of us equitably. We know that if you live in a low-income community, which too often is a community of color, you're more likely to be systematically denied the ability to make the choices for healthy food for your family and yourself. It's facts like these that tell us we have to think about food not just individually, but as a system. The who, what, when, where, why, and how of the food system is broader than an individual. It is a system, and there are no systems of one. I want you to think for a minute about the transportation or transit system here in Michigan. And it's really an apt analogy for any of us that drove on Michigan roads to get here today. If we were to look at our transportation system in Michigan the way most of us look at the food system, each of us would have the responsibility for fixing the potholes in front of our own home. We understand that streets, roads, and highways are part of a whole transit system, a collective responsibility for which we have to take collective action. So here's the lesson. We cannot reinvigorate our food system unless we cannot reinvigorate our food system if we think about it as individuals. We have to grab the potential of the food system to transform our lives, our community, and our planet. And it's not just about realizing the potential. It's a necessity that we do this for our future. Food presents us opportunities and also can be a component of some of our biggest challenges: global warming, healthcare, our national budget, population growth, income inequality. Our nation's health bills are skyrocketing, most of it because of preventable diet-related illness. And it starts young. Now, even though we've had some good news in the last year about a plateauing of childhood obesity, the numbers are still disturbing. 17% of kids aged 2 to 19 are obese. It jumps 3 points for African American kids and 5 points for Latino youth. And it's acute in Michigan. 1 in 3 adults and 1 in 8 children are obese. This is really unconscionable in our society, and it's going to bankrupt us. But I want to tell you, while there are serious challenges, and most of us know about them, there are also many bright spots that we can point to. Small family farms increased by 400,000 across the United States between the years of 1996 and 2012. That's the first time in my career working in agriculture that we've seen that kind of increase. And the growth in farmers markets in the U.S., back in the 70s, only about 300, now over 8,000, a remarkable indication of the growing awareness of people nationwide of the benefits and importance of finding locally grown food and supporting a local food system. And we have had spectacular results here in Michigan, a lot of it led by the Michigan Farmers Market Association, by Drew and Amanda and others. We've more than doubled the number of farmers markets in the state of Michigan since 2006, from less than 150 to over 300 now. And MIFMA, the Michigan Farmers Market Association, is committed to making sure that farmers markets serve all of us in the state. In 2006, only 3 farmers markets in the state of Michigan accepted the SNAP Bridge Card. Only 3. Today, Michigan ranks second in the nation in the number of farmers markets that accept SNAP. 128 farmers markets, absolutely. This is something worth celebrating. And while we're celebrating, I want to make sure that we celebrate the work of Betty Wiggins in Detroit, the Detroit food system, the Detroit school food system. Now, I don't remember whether she said it's 23% or 43% of that food now being sourced from Michigan for Detroit youngsters, but she is on a tear and is creating inspiration for people all across the country. Another bright spot we have in the state of Michigan is the roadmap that we have in the Michigan Good Food Charter. Now, many of you helped develop that, and all of us are here today to move it forward. It's grounded in the values that Michelle talked about: food that's healthy, green, fair, and affordable. The charter lays out a vision, ambitious goals, and 25 priorities. We've made great progress since 2010 on many of those priorities. And you can see them in the report card. Much of the progress is highlighted in the report card of the Good Food Charter that's in the packets that we each got today. Here's just a couple of highlights. More than 100 of Michigan's nearly 150 hospitals have committed to locally sourcing 20% of their food by the year 2020. Right? That's huge that we have that kind of commitment in the state. And an exciting new development with the Michigan Good Food Fund I want to share with you, a new public-private partnership. It's a loan fund that is going to finance healthy food processing, distribution, and retail that benefit underserved communities here in the state of Michigan. Think of it as the financing arm of the Michigan Good Food Charter. It's the way we actually put in place much of what we're talking about in the state. It can fuel entrepreneurship and usher in good food enterprises that can bring along with them more jobs in our underserved communities. We've already raised more than $3 million to get this Michigan Good Food Fund started, and that is just a start. We're going to bring additional funds to this state and into this fund to assure that entrepreneurs, food entrepreneurs all across the state have access to the financing they need to build their businesses. We also see Michigan-grown food and agriculture making inroads in the state, at the state policy and government level. You know, the Pure Michigan campaign is gaining attention all across the country. And now the Pure Michigan campaign is including our strong heritage in agriculture. It's featuring Michigan food products and agriculture in some of its advertisements and guidelines in place that support a Grown in Michigan label. Now, this work, together with the great work, for example, of the Michigan Land Use Institute in their Taste a Local Difference program in northern Michigan, or the great work of Eastern Market in Detroit, are putting Michigan on the map as the place for good food. So I want you to check out that report card to get more information about that. But really, all of us ought to be celebrating Michigan as the place for good food. So this is all good news, all really good news. So the question that I want to bring to us now is, how do we take these successes and scale them more broadly so that these are not isolated victories that we're seeing, but actually big wins that can influence this system as a whole? And how do we build the political will so that food system policy change can happen at a faster and more transformational pace? Well, my belief is that if we're going to do this, we need to build 3 bridges that aren't here today. We need to build a bridge across traditionally siloed food system issues. We need to take projects from successful model to mainstream, and we need to build bridges across the partners with whom we work. So let's talk about these in turn. Bridge number 1, think of it as moving from silos to system. The bridges from silos to systems. So what we're looking at here are solutions that encompass multiple wins, which is what you hope happens rather than trying to solve a problem one at a time. It's especially important to find solutions that support farmers and consumers, especially vulnerable consumers, all at the same time. And here's why. You know, there are times that I find that groups working on food issues seem to be camped at one pole or another. So on one side there, let's call them the Epicureans or foodies. So this person will make a point that we need to pay the real cost of good food. If we want fresh produce, healthy meat, all grown in a sustainable manner, rather than processed corn and soy products, we need to pay more for labor and the sustainable practices that go into producing that food. Now, make no mistake, this thinking, in my view, is very commendable. There are too many small-scale farmers that the Michigan Good Food Charter is trying to support that are operating at a loss. That's economically unsustainable, and we can't keep that up. So we have to confront the economic inequities in the system. So, on one side, you got the foodies. On the other side, the camp or the pole of anti-hunger activists, where the top priority is preserving calories for those who are most vulnerable. Now, making sure that families have the food they need to eat is a concern that all of us have to share. It is shameful that anybody in our state or in our country would go hungry. But I believe that those that are sitting at either of those poles can be limited by their particular vision. If we only focus on the real costs of, as Epicureans would have us do, then healthy food becomes a luxury for the elite. The emphasis on price comes at the expense of equitable access and quality. Or if we focus solely on the protection of calories, the opposite happens. We focus on quantity and not quality, and we start to search for policies that are going to keep food as cheap as possible. That ignores the needed improvements we need for small-scale agriculture, for small family farmers, and especially for food and farm workers. It should never be a question of whether we're going to support family farmers or hungry families. We have to do both, and we can do both. We need solutions that deliver access and equity for both farmers and consumers. So let's bring it home. It's not just a concept. An example, a dynamic organization that has literally sprouted up in Battle Creek called Sprout Urban Farms. Launched in 2009 by Jeremy Andrews. Jeremy, you're here, yeah. So how about a shout out for this great organization? So Sprout Urban Farms has helped establish more than 36 community gardens, including the city's first youth-run urban farm. They have a mobile market and a food truck, and they have found ways and are finding ways to bring healthy food into low-access neighborhoods while making sure that those who are producing the food are getting a fair price for what they're producing. So it supports farmers and the consumers. In fact, the Fresh on Wheels mobile food truck, 3/4 of its stops are at assisted living facilities. It's an example of an organization focusing on systems rather than on silos, delivering solutions that work for both families and farmers. We need many more of these kinds of models here in the state of Michigan. So Jeremy, thank you for the work that you and your team and your colleagues are doing in Battle Creek. So that's the first bridge, from silos to systems. Second bridge we need is from model to mainstream. You know, as a movement, and Michelle said that I've been following this for many years. As a movement, we have many, many success stories that didn't exist 20 years ago. Too often, though, these projects are isolated. They're having great impact in the community where it's happening, but they could be having much more impact if they could be replicated, scaled up, adapted, adopted, many different words for this idea of going from model to mainstream. And this is where policy comes in. Policy can support broader replication. In fact, public policy is the vehicle to go from model to mainstream. Now, I've seen firsthand the power of public policy to help make this shift with Double Up Food Bucks. I just want to say that in my view, Double Up Food Bucks is a statewide success story here in Michigan. It's grounded in partnerships. Now, some of you have helped bring it to life at markets, working with farmers, at farm stands, farmers markets, and grocery stores, bringing it to life. Some of you support the outreach efforts to make sure that our vulnerable families who need more access to affordable fruits and vegetables can get it. So you're involved in that way. Some of you have helped support it with philanthropic funding. This is truly a collective effort. And together we have put Michigan on the map for leadership in this field. Now, is there anybody unfamiliar with Double Up Food Bucks, how it works? And don't be shy, because I'll explain it if there's even one. But this is actually a testament to what's going on, that this is a project that really all of us are getting involved with. Well, it's a win-win-win. You know, we started with 5 markets in Detroit in 2009. There's now 150 sites and growing all across the state of Michigan. It's a win-win-win. Families bring home more healthy food, farmers get more customers and making more money, and the food dollars stay in the local economy. A win-win-win. And each of those has ripple benefits in the community. So farmer from Cedar, Michigan, Matt Visser, tells us, "I'm glad to have more business, but even aside from the sales factor, I'm happy knowing the people have good food." So a win-win for him. A double-up shopper at Allen Street Farmers Market right here in Lansing tells us, "It stretched my food budget. I don't have to make the choice between bread and beets. I can get both." Now, as great as this model has been in Michigan, it's even greater that we were able to work with our good Senator Debbie Stabenow so that when the Farm Bill was signed earlier this year, right here in Lansing, it included a provision that she helped put in the Farm Bill to bring federal funding to scale double-up food bucks and replicate it across the country. Now, the 2014 Farm Bill was not perfect by any means. I'll be the first to admit it. But I got to tell you, I've never seen a perfect Farm Bill in my career, and I really don't expect to see a perfect one the rest of my career. But there were a lot of bright spots, and one bright spot was $100 million of funding in that bill to expand and scale double-up food bucks. Now, we hope to, and we're working hard, to bring some of that federal funding to Michigan to expand the program and continue innovating. And many of you are critical partners in that effort. So I'm sharing this story with you not just because I'm so proud of what together we've been able to accomplish. I really share it because we need more of this type of scale-up, and it simply isn't possible without the partnerships and the policy support. So, the bridge from model to mainstream, and there's an example of how we can do it. So we've got the two bridges, silos to systems and model to mainstream, focused on victories on several fronts and focused on affecting a much broader portion of the public. Now, this is a tall order, so the big question is, how do we get there? How do we go from here to there? And that's where we need our third bridge that I call from them to us. I believe we have to expand who the good food movement works with. Now, this, I know, is not a popular position. It's always more comfortable for us to work with people who have overlapping values, missions, and see the world the way we do. But if we're not more inclusive, we won't see the change that we need to see at a rapid enough pace. We need to make significant impact on issues like global warming, our health crisis, income inequality, and the nutritional divide. And that means we need to increase the diversity of people and ideas at the table. We need to focus on finding and implementing workable ideas rather than putting an ideological stake in the ground. The more we act as if there are enemies to conquer, the more our energies are getting diverted into unwinnable fights. We have to engage partners at every level in designing a system that works for them as well as for us. So who is them, anyway, right? Well, them might be conventional farmer, them might be, big ag, them might be a conventional distributor or restaurant. Simply put, anybody who's not yet involved in what we're doing. And this is what makes the Michigan Good Food Charter so inspiring. It brings together diverse stakeholders to create a common vision for our future. And it's why gatherings like this are so important, because it brings us together with those we might know and many who we don't know yet. My hope is that today provided us all an opportunity to meet new people, to exchange thoughts, and to test the boundaries of our current thinking. The good food movement has to expand if we're going to have the impact that we need. If potential partners are not yet aligned, we can't shun them. We need instead to bring them along, meeting them where they're at, and finding solutions that work for all of us. Building closer relationships of trust along the way. That's how you make change to a whole system. Now, not everybody's going to be an active participant, but you know what? You don't need everybody. The civil rights movement didn't need everybody on its side to demolish Jim Crow. The LGBT community has made massive strides for marriage equality all across his country in less than a decade without the entire country at its side. We just need enough people who understand that the food system is a system and doesn't affect just our dinner plate and our refrigerator, but it affects our communities, our state, our nation, and our planet. I believe that we can help build that critical mass by building the 3 bridges. We can make big changes. We are already seeing substantial wins. My wish for us all is that we can shift our understanding and do it while we're working together. We have problems to fix, and we have the opportunity to affect many of them if we look at the food system not from the perspective of what's for dinner, but from the perspective of a system that connects all of us. So, let's do it. And let's do it with all the courage, all the strength, and all the joy that we can hold in our hearts. I thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon and for the day today.